Hello quilters, this is Joyce Grandy with Material Girls of Florida. So this is a video about how I quilted this new pattern. I came up with the Pinwheel Christmas pattern over the summer. It's in my Etsy shop. I'll put a link down below. But I didn't quilt it. I was kind of stuck on what to do, so I put it aside and just recently got back to it. So I want to show you some things that I did. I designed this pinwheel pattern on, it's a 4-inch block, a 4-inch pinwheel block. So I designed that pattern. I'm going to show you how I did that. I copied that pattern, really hard to see, on the white background, but I'll show you more on that later. And then in the borders, I did a stipple pattern that I use all the time. Typically, when someone says stipple, you think of a curve. Well, this is a pointed stipple. It's my go-to brainless type of quilting. I used it in this border. It's only a 2-inch border because I felt it complemented the holly really nicely. So I have a little demo on how I do that. I also did a striped border. You can see the red stripe border that I did. I used my no hand sew technique. I have a video on that. I'll also put that link down below. But you can see I sewed it from the front, and it catches the backing pretty perfectly all the ways around, so you don't have to sew it by hand. Let's see, the gifts are outline quilted. I didn't use a ruler, I just go slow, and I've been doing that a long time, and it's just easy for me to do that. And then the trunk, it's a wavy line, more outline, and then going up to the top, all the way to the top, the star is more outline quilting. And then that row where the star is, if you can see, I just did some wavy lines with more stars. The quilting on the white is really just adding texture. It's not the star of the show by far, and that's the way I like it. I keep that in mind when I do my quilting. For this, I used, on the green, a marathon 40 weight polyester in the top and in the bottom. And although I don't always do that, I felt, let me back up so you can hopefully see, I wanted to see the quilting that I was doing on this particular pattern. If I didn't want to see it, I would have used an 80 weight deco bob in the back, but I kind of like seeing it, so that's what I did for this quilt. So let me show you, let me show you how I did this. Okay, so here's where I started. Here's the quilt under my needle. I went through using a monofilament thread on top and just regular 80 weight thread on the bottom, and stay stitched it row by row. Each row is stay stitched. And let me turn it over and see if you can see the stay stitching as I went. I spray basted and also pinned this while I was doing that, because no matter what, it's always going to shift, and that's how I like to do it. So here's how I decided on the design. Let me first bring you into the design. So let's go down to, how about right there? Oops, if I can get the whole thing on camera. Okay, there we go. So what I did was I decided on this holly design, and it's just a point, 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 and then a scroll in the middle. It took me a while to do that. I won't say that it just pops right up into my mind, but here's how I do that. I start with a piece of paper. I rough draw with pen the block, and so this was a half square triangle, so I actually draw all the lines. And then I take a pencil and I just start doodling. So some of my doodles, I had kind of leafy things. Some I had kind of curves, echoing. I tried a few different things, geometric. So I just doodle, doodle, doodle. If I don't like what I did, this is why I use a pencil. I can just erase this and not have to redraw it. and just keep what I like. Here's my original doodle. This is what I finished with that I like this way the best. Okay, so these were contenders, these three. And then finally I came up with the holly leaf, which I really liked. And it's a continuous sew. If I start in the middle, I can do all four corners before I cut my thread. But before I start sewing, so back to the pencil drawing, and I want to tell you, if you get nothing else from me, please remember this. If you just draw it with pencil and paper or whatever, 2 or 3 times, it will lock into your brain. I swear it will. I know it doesn't sound like it should, but it will. So I just do 2 boxes, and I'm going to figure out the design, starting in the middle. Now for this, it's simple. I'm not using rulers. I'm just going to go curve to the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point, curve to the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point. And then I went back over just halfway up, and purposely did not go on the same line. I want it to look like it's a double line. So I end up here, and now I'm going to do it again. Curve to the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point. And it does not matter where this goes, except I don't want this to match, if possible. Sometimes I do, but I try not to. Do my thing up the center. So let's do this one. See, I'm going to come in a little short so they don't touch, because I want it to look a little wonky. This is not machine made. I mean, it is machine made, but I don't want it to look like it's a program. There we go. So now's the last one. And maybe I would come real close to that point. That's okay. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I just, like I said, try not to. And there we go. And back down. Now I cut my thread. Because this is not, and so I would do this twice. At least twice, and that literally locks it into my brain. I'm done. I'll just know it when I go to sew it. So because this is not a show quilt, I'm going to use my thread cutter on the machine. And here's my machine set up. So I have my Juki. Whoops. Let me see if I can back this up enough to get it into focus. Sorry. I'm on you can see my iPad there. I do a mirror on my iPad of what I'm doing so I can kind of see if I'm on camera. But here's my my Juki settings. So here's what I have. I have my reverse scissors on top. I use, well, these are not Machingers, but they are a cheaper brand from one of my distributors. And look, I have a hole in it, but that's okay. I had literally cut the tip off when I was cutting something. So now when I'm sewing and I have to cut a thread, I can just take this and snip without taking my gloves off. Huge, huge, huge time saver. I love that more than anything else. So let me sew one of these, and then you can see how easy it is. And let me get one that's going to be in the screen. Let's see. So I'm going to start here. Oh, let me go back a little more. Come in a little bit more, as close as I can. Okay, needle down. Like I said, I'm using my cutter, so because I know it's not going to be in a show, and I don't mind if I have the knot on the back. So here we go. Couple stitches to anchor. To the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point, curve to the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point, and then I'm going to do a squiggly line halfway up and come back not quite over that squiggly line again. Needle down and just do the same thing. So watch how I'm going to try not to meet that point. Pretty good. Curve to the middle, curve to the point. Now here's another point. I'm going to like miss it. There we go. Curve to the point, and then up with a squiggly line. And back down so that I always end up in the middle. I'm using a 14 needle because I have a lot of intersections here with a lot of layers, and this Juki needs a 14 for that. So let's finish this. Curve to the middle, curve to the middle. Now that one almost meets up, but that's okay. Curve to the point, curve to the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point, and a squiggly line. And we have one more to go. Curve to the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point, curve to the middle, curve to the middle, curve to the point, and then a squiggly line. I'm struggling to go slow enough for this recording. I usually go a lot faster. I'm done with that one, so I will cut the thread, and that one's done. I'd go on to the next one. Now let me show you what I mean by, so here's the back. Let's see, can you see that? Barely see that little knot? That's what I meant by, since it's not a show quilt, I'm letting the machine cut it. If this were a show quilt, I would pull the threads, cut them and bury them. That's, judges look for that kind of silly thing. But this is the back of the quilt. I think it looks pretty cool when I get done. And that's it. So I don't know what I'm going to do on these sides yet. We have these, put it up again. Whoops. These, it has big open spaces on the sides of each of the rows. I haven't decided yet. I'll decide when I get there. I might just do the same design with white thread on the white block. In that case, I would mark off the 4-inch block and just with a iron off pen do a couple of hashtag marks somewhere and just follow the lines as if it was pieced. I'll decide. I'll do another video when I get to that part of it. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so this is where I'm at now. I've done the entire tree with the holly pattern, and then I've done one side of the white rose. Let me try to make this light a little bit better. There we go. So what you're seeing here is the Frixion pen. I drew squares. It was easy to do because I have seam allowances right here. So I just took my ruler and quickly drew the grid so that I could go down and, I know this is really hard to see white on white there. I hope you can see that. I drew the squares, and then I went through and quickly did that holly going across. So what I'm going to do now is get my iron and iron off those squares. And then you can see, well, you really can't see because white on white or black on black, it's practically impossible to see, but you'll get the idea once I get those lines off. So there we go. So now let me zoom in. It's very subtle, the quilting, which I like. I like to see the texture, but not necessarily a pattern. I just want to know there's a texture there, so I hope you can see how the hollies are going with the tree. Same pattern, I just continued it across. I have to do the star and the top, and I'm not going to use that same pattern, and I have to do the borders yet. Whoops. That's where the safety pin is. It's just a small border. I think it's a 2-inch border. So I'll continue with this, but I wanted to show you the grids before I iron them off. I'll be back. Okay, so I'm going to demo that meandering stitch on a scrap quilt because I have white thread in my machine, and you wouldn't be able to see it if it was white on white. So instead of doing the curves, I do a pointed way. So needle down, and it's kind of like a lot of R's, like a cursive R. And I like it because it's easy to change directions. You don't have to worry about having a smooth curve, which is the hardest thing for a beginner to get. These have points, so really, let me slow down my machine even more. I mean, if you were to go slow, straight, stop. Go the other direction, stop. Go back, stop. So I mean, you could go really as slow as you want. I tend to go fast. But you can see how this is a good filler, and it's kind of mindless sewing. So there you go. Okay, that's it. That's how I did this quilt, how I quilted it. I hope you got something from this video, and check the links in the description below for the rest of my videos and the pattern. Bye.